Welcome to A Mind for Life. This is video number 5 in the Brainwashing 101 mini-series. And we're going to start off talking about shadow work. Shadow work is looking into those dark places that we may not want to look into. The dark crevices and corners in our lives that may cause us pain, embarrassment, or maybe even skeletons in the closet. Okay, things that are not of the sunshine and rainbow type. This is what shadow work is for us. But the beauty of the shadow is that shadows often contain the breakthrough. Shadows often contain the treasures in our lives, the things that we fail to want to look at. A lot of the breakthroughs and healing is based upon going back into the shadows in our lives and seeing the beauty that's there, the breakthrough that's there. However, we must go into shadows according to our individual tolerance levels. And I've said this before. I call it shadow tolerance. Shadow tolerance is just how much of this can I take? You know, I'm looking at this event or this time in my life that was very dark. I think it's exerting an influence over me now. How much of this can I handle without getting depressed? How much of this can I handle without being mad at the world? Now, if you're getting depressed and mad at the world, etc., you're in the shadow too much. Come on out into the light. You know, you've got to have balance with that. But it's important to do this shadow work. Now, we're going to talk about the second aspect to how to not be brainwashed, or how to overcome brainwashing or prevent yourself from being brainwashed. The first one we talked about, and I'll recap that right quickly, is choosing your thoughts. Choosing our thoughts means focusing. It means practicing thoughts until it becomes what we know. Once it becomes what we know, automatically a belief in what we know is often elicited. But if not, we can come into that covenant agreement with what we know. That's a belief. Once we cast that belief onto the outer world and say, this is what it is, that's our perspective. Our life flows from that. Our life experiences flow from that. So to choose our thoughts means that we focus on things. We practice thoughts which become what we know and believe in our perspectives based on what we want to be, do, and have. There's a direction to this. Along certain dominant lines, spirituality, health and fitness, material abundance and finances, relationships, as I said before in the previous video. So that's the first way, and you can go back and watch that. The second way is self-honesty. See, when we're not really real with ourselves about what we really believe and what we really think, what we really want, our desires especially, it renders us easy to be manipulated, easy to be brainwashed. And this is a skill that has been used, and it's being used all the time. You see it everywhere. Like I said in the last video, brainwashing is not some exclusive event that happens in the mountains or in the desert or in the wilderness. Brainwashing is 24/7. Everywhere you look, you're seeing brainwashing happen. The guy who buys the cigarettes, is he buying the cigarettes because he wants to smoke, really? Or does he want that beautiful girl on the billboard? Or a girl like that? Or does he want sex? Or does he want love? See, it goes deep. And that's the level that the brainwasher can go. Now, to get an idea of what we need to do or what we can do to get into this mode of not being brainwashed and being self-directed, choosing, having full choice over your life, over our lives, we have to turn towards what I've said over and over again. And I'll say it now. Emotions. Your emotions are the telescope to the universe. Your emotions are the telescope to the universe. They point towards what you really know, what you really believe, and what your true perspectives are. And I've said this at the end of the cosmology, this was talked about. If you go out here somewhere like this, and before you came, you said, "Oh, bears won't attack me. Bears, they only attack when they're provoked. They're essentially harmless creatures, unless you provoke them." But then you get out here and you see a bear and you freak out. What does that tell you? What does that emotion tell you? That fear tell you? Does it tell you think bears are docile, peaceful creatures? Or does it tell you that you really believe that bears are ferocious man-eaters? What does that emotion tell you about you? About your perspective generating mechanism? And that's something we talked about before, but in other words, about what you know, what you believe, and what your perspectives are. What does that reveal to you? And I said this before, emotions reveal. So can you see how, are you beginning to see how your emotions can lead you into a place of invincibility when it comes to brainwashing? Because what they do, they show you what you really desire. Now, this is called compensation. This is called compensatory. It's suppressed desires that you are wanting something else for to compensate. So if you see the chocolate cake and you eat the chocolate cake, but you really want love, and you don't know that what you're really wanting is love, you can eat all the chocolate cake in the world, but you will continually be frustrated and unhappy. The chocolate cake will not bring you that. This is that compensation. That's that symbolic thing where the cake symbolizes for you love. The cigarettes symbolize for you intimate connection. But they never bring you that. And those that are brainwashing you, and we're talking about a very superficial form of brainwashing, buying product, know this. See, this is the idea, to know what your true desires are apart from what you say they are. And this is this compensation for the truth. Compensation for the truth, that you go after something that symbolizes this. And your emotions can tell you, after you've eaten the 10th chocolate cake, how do you feel? After you smoke that cigarette and you know you shouldn't, how do you feel? After you've done anything that tries to substitute, you're using as a substitute for something else that you really want, how do you really feel? Tap into that feeling, and that will reveal to you, wait a minute, that will not give me that. So I could smoke 1,000,000 cigarettes and it still won't give me the fulfillment that I'm really looking for, which is an intimate connection. It's not even the sex. See, this thing goes on layers. And your emotions help you to navigate the universe. In other words, they're selling you sex with the cigarette ad. But are you really wanting that? Is sex what you really want? Is that a repressed desire? Oh, I want sex, but I shouldn't want sex. Okay, that's a repressed desire. But what is that in the place of really a more intrinsic desire for connection? So to be able to be honest with the self is to be able to be in touch with how you really feel about things. I disagree that you can come into an awareness of what you really think and feel through thinking. I call that mentalizing. I talked about that before. You can't use your thoughts to figure yourself out. This has to be revealed, like pulling off of a sheet off of a table. There's no amount of thinking that you could do to try to figure out what was really under that sheet, the color of the table, etc., the features, attributes. It had to be revealed to you. You couldn't think your way into that. So is the same way with what your true motives are. See, when you're not in touch with your true motives, it renders you, me, all of us, manipulable. In other words, we can be manipulated because we can be sold as a compensatory substitute instead of the real thing. So she really wants love, but let's sell her the chocolate cake. If she knew she wanted love, why would she want the chocolate cake? So let's associate in our advertisement love and a chocolate cake. You understand this, right? So to recap, to be in touch with your emotions is to be in touch with what your true motives are, what the true actuating thrust of your actions are, as opposed to what you may say they are or what you may think they are. Once you're in touch with what your true motives are at different levels, then you can make a different choice. Then you can see the cigarette ad and say, just because I smoke doesn't mean I'm going to have the beautiful girl, doesn't mean I'm going to have sex, doesn't mean I'm going to have relationship, doesn't mean I'm going to have an intimate connection. Doesn't mean any of that. Even though the cigarettes have been presented in such a way to associate with that, doesn't mean I'm going to have that, you see? So therefore, that little piece of brainwashing right there has no effect on you. All right? So the first aspect I talked about in the last video, which was choosing your thoughts. Today we're talking about being self-knowledgeable, being self-honest, being honest with yourself about what it is that you really want, what your true desires are. The next video, we're going to talk about the third thing in this, which was the last I gave, which is individuality, being an individual. How does this make you aware enough to where you're not so easily brainwashed? See, when let me tell you what brainwashing is. And I said this before. Brainwashing is the deliberate, covert changing of another's perspective to fulfill a plan or agenda. You don't want that. You don't want that. And the purpose of the propaganda, and we're referring to a specific book, Edward Bernays' 1928 Propaganda, is to get in there and covertly change your perspective. Have your taste, your desires, your self-image all be engineered to serve some other entity or individual. That's not freedom. But if it's done covertly, and if it's based upon what you really want, not what you say you want, not what's been presented that you think you want, you see, then you're manipulable. But once we become, through our emotions and the second aspect, aware, hey, wait a minute. I'm eating all these French fries. I know it's not good for me. I'm eating all this chocolate cake. It's hurting me. It's not good. Creating more problems. What I really want is a hug. What I really want is love. I really want an intimate connection. Then we can begin to move towards that truth. Then once we come in contact with all of this lightweight brainwashing out here, how to use words, how to use colors, how to phrase things, how to put images together, we can look at that and say that won't bring me what it's indirectly promising it will. That's freedom. We have freedom to choose. Now we can choose our thoughts based upon what we want to be, do, and have. You see? So that ends this video. And we're going to get to, in the next video, we're going to talk about that third aspect, which is individuality. Okay? Thanks for coming to A Mind for Life. Peace out.